My daughter-in-law, Sarah, hid my hearing aids, then gossiped loudly about my deafness, mocking my pleas. They left me isolated, stealing my savings. I pretended not to hear, secretly recording their every word. Your silence will deafen you, I vowed, ensuring their public downfall and reclaiming my voice. Before we begin, share in the comments, what would you do in that situation? Every voice matters. Thanks. The morning light, usually a source of comfort, now seemed to mock me as it crept through the blinds of my bedroom. It had once been a vibrant sunroom, filled with my prize-winning orchids and the scent of jasmine, but after Mark and Sarah moved in, it became my gilded cage. My most precious possessions, my custom-fitted hearing aids, were gone. I'd placed them on my nightstand just last night, a ritual as ingrained as breathing. Now, the world around me was a dull, muffled hum, punctuated by the sharp, echoing clatter from the kitchen below. I knew that sound. It was Sarah, undoubtedly banging pots and pans with a performative flourish, always louder when she thought I couldn't hear. My arthritic knees, usually a reliable barometer of weather changes, throbbed with a cold dread. Grandma's still sleeping, I guess, I heard, or rather, felt the vibrations of Sarah's voice. It was pitched higher than usual, a telltale sign she was talking about me. Probably having one of her little episodes again. Mark's deeper rumble followed, indistinguishable words, but the dismissive tone resonated through the floorboards. Just yesterday, during what they insisted was a family discussion about my increasing forgetfulness, Mark had chuckled. She can't even remember where she put her spectacles, let alone her checkbook. Sarah had then chimed in, with feigned concern, maybe it's time we think about a safer living arrangement for her, dear. Somewhere, quieter, perhaps a facility where she can get constant supervision. They thought I was oblivious, a fading photograph of my former self. They were wrong. My mind was as sharp as ever, honed by decades of teaching literature at the university, where nuance and subtext were paramount. What they mistook for confusion was a carefully constructed facade, a mask I wore to observe their escalating cruelty. The first sign of their true intentions had been subtle. A missed doctor's appointment I swore I'd confirmed, then later, a sudden loss of my bank statements. When I questioned Mark, he'd simply patted my hand with a patronizing smile, his eyes avoiding mine. Don't worry your pretty little head, Evelyn. I'm handling everything. You just focus on relaxing. Relaxation, it turned out, meant isolation. My once cherished landline, a lifeline to my friends and the outside world, was disconnected, replaced by a simplified mobile device that only allowed outgoing calls to Mark and Sarah's numbers. For emergencies only, Grandma, Mark had insisted, confiscating my old smartphone with its contacts and internet access. My once bustling social calendar evaporated. My lively bridge club, my intellectually stimulating book group, my weekly visits to the botanical gardens where I volunteered, all ceased, with Sarah inventing elaborate excuses about my poor health or sudden bouts of dementia. Oh, Evelyn isn't feeling up to company today, Agnes. I'd overheard her coo into the phone, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. She's just not herself. Now, with my hearing aids gone, the silence was more profound, yet paradoxically, it made their true voices clearer. Their sneering whispers, their conspiratorial laughter, their dismissive sighs, they echoed in the void, stark and undeniable. I saw Sarah's mouth move below, her head tilted towards Mark as she spoke, undoubtedly detailing my latest infirmity to him. Mark simply nodded, his eyes fixed on his tablet, already mentally counting the inheritance they so desperately craved. My pension was already being siphoned, small amounts at first, then larger sums. My investment portfolio, built painstakingly over decades with my late husband Arthur, was next. They saw me not as a mother or a grandmother, but as a dwindling resource, a barrier to their lavish lifestyle. A cold, hard resolve settled in my chest, a determination that had been dormant since Arthur's passing. They wanted to silence me. They wanted to erase me. I would show them what happens when you underestimate an old woman who has nothing left to lose but her dignity. My silence would be their undoing. The missing hearing aids were not an isolated incident. They were a deliberate escalation, a calculated move in their perverse game. Without them, my world was a muffled haze, making it impossible to follow conversations, to understand the subtle shifts in tone that betray true intent. Sarah would often forget to tell me about visitors or conversations with relatives, then feign surprise when I seemed out of the loop. "Oh, Grandma, didn't I tell you? Your sister Elena called yesterday. She said you seemed a bit off, a little confused." It was a classic gaslighting technique, sowing seeds of doubt in my own mind, undermining my confidence in my own memories. But my mind was a steel trap, a labyrinth of meticulously stored information, recording every instance of their deceit. I kept a running tally, not on paper, which they would surely find, but in the most secure place possible. My own memory, dates, times, specific phrases, even the expressions on their faces, every detail was logged. They continued to dismiss my complaints about my health, often mocking my pain. My chronic arthritis, which had flared up recently due to the dampness in the house and the stress, was met with a dismissive wave of Sarah's hand. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Evelyn. You're not going to shatter just by walking to the bathroom." Once, I found myself locked in my room for an entire day because I had dared to ask for my financial statements, the ones that had disappeared into Mark's safekeeping. Mark, his face a mask of patronizing concern, had explained, "Mom, we just want to ensure you're safe. Sometimes you wander, and it's for your own good. We worry you might fall." Wander where? To the kitchen for a glass of water, to the bathroom, to my former study which they had converted into a home gym. This was not about safety. It was about control, about making me utterly dependent, a prisoner in my own home. My social life, once vibrant and fulfilling, had been systematically dismantled. My dear friend, Agnes from the Bridge Club, had tried to visit twice, her familiar car pulling into the driveway, only to be turned away by Sarah, who claimed I was resting or not feeling up to company. I later overheard Sarah on the phone to Agnes, feigning distress. "Poor Evelyn, she's just not herself these days, so forgetful. I worry about her living alone if anything were to happen to us." The irony was biting. I wasn't alone. I was a prisoner in my own home, surrounded by those who wished me gone, who actively worked to hasten my demise. I longed for Agnes's sharp wit, her practical advice, her unwavering loyalty. She was a retired social worker, keenly attuned to the subtle signs of abuse, and I knew she would recognize what was happening if only she could get through to me. The thought of her concern, her persistent attempts to reach me, became a lifeline in my despair. I started a mental ledger, meticulously noting every act of neglect, every cruel remark, every stolen dollar. The list grew disturbingly long. The time Sarah forgot to refill my blood pressure medication, causing my dizzy spells and sending my heart racing. The time Mark accidentally locked the pantry, knowing I kept my favorite crackers there, leaving me to contend with the sparse, unappetizing meals Sarah deemed suitable for an invalid. The mocking laughter when I fumbled with a spoon, my hands trembling from hunger and weakness. Each incident fueled my resolve, hardening the steel in my spine. I remembered Arthur, his calm strength, his unwavering belief in justice. He had always taught me to fight for what was right, to never back down from a bully. And these, my own son and his wife, were the worst kind of bullies, those who wore smiles while they stole your life, piece by agonizing piece, under the guise of care. The thought of them inheriting everything, of them living lavishly on the fruits of my lifelong labor, of Arthur's legacy, filled me with a cold fury that sustained me. I would not just survive. I would ensure their grand plans crumbled into dust. The breakthrough, as it often happens, came from an unexpected source, a ray of pure, unadulterated kindness. Lily, my great-granddaughter, Mark and Sarah's teenage daughter, visited twice a week after school. She was a quiet, observant girl, with eyes that held a flicker of the compassion I rarely saw in her parents. Unlike her parents, she never mocked my fumbling hands or my hesitant speech. She brought me library books, read to me in a soft voice, and sometimes, when she thought no one was listening, she would ask, "Are you really okay, Grandma Evelyn? You seem sad." Her genuine concern was a balm to my weary soul. One afternoon, while Sarah was out, supposedly, running errands, which I knew meant lunch with her friends, likely discussing my dwindling assets and plotting their next move, Lily brought me a new e-reader. "Grandma, I found your old e-reader settings on Dad's computer," she whispered, her voice barely audible as she presented the device. "And loaded some of your favorite novels on this one. It's a bit old, but it still works." My heart leaped. My old e-reader, my portal to worlds beyond these suffocating walls, had disappeared months ago, dismissed by Mark as too complicated for you now, Mom. This simple act of rebellion, of connecting me to something they had taken, filled me with a hope I hadn't felt in months. I accepted it with a feigned, shaky smile, pretending to struggle with its buttons, ensuring she thought I was still the confused grandma they all expected. "Oh, thank you, dear," I mumbled, my voice weak. But as soon as she left to do her homework, my nimble fingers flew across the screen. I was a fast reader, and within minutes I located the small Wi-Fi icon. The house network was password protected, but I knew their weakness. Laziness. Mark had written the password on a sticky note under their desk, where I'd seen it once when I was supposedly tidying up. A fleeting moment of observation that now proved invaluable. That night, after the house settled into its deceptive quiet, the only sounds the creaks of the old floorboards and the occasional distant siren, I accessed the internet. The digital world, which they thought they had locked away from me, unfurled before my eyes like a vast, limitless ocean. My first search was for Agnes. Her phone number was still listed, unchanged, a beacon of familiarity in a sea of uncertainty. My fingers trembled as I typed. The call didn't go through, as expected, thanks to my simplified phone, but the e-reader could send emails. I composed a short, urgent message, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Agnes, it's Evelyn. I need your help. I'm in trouble. Please find a way to contact me. This is urgent. Do not tell Mark or Sarah." I hit send, a tremor of fear and exhilaration running through me. It was a gamble, a dangerous step, but it was my only way out. I knew Agnes would understand the urgency behind those few words. She knew me too well to dismiss it as the ramblings of a confused old woman. The next day, a package arrived from Agnes. It contained a new pair of reading glasses, but tucked inside the case was a tiny, prepaid burner phone, barely larger than my thumb. It was old school, no internet, but it made calls. Along with it a note. "Evelyn, are you okay? I'm worried, call me on this number. Agnes." My hands shook as I dialed, the small device feeling like a lead weight, yet a feather in my palm. The ringing seemed to take an eternity. "Agnes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion when she answered. Thank you for seeing me, thank you for not giving up." Her calm, steady voice was like a lifeline pulling me back from the brink. "Evelyn, what in the world is happening? Mark told me you're not well, that you're quite unwell, actually." "They're trying to steal everything, Agnes," I explained, recounting the cruelty, the neglect, the financial exploitation, the missing hearing aids, the constant gaslighting. "They even hid my hearing aids so I can't hear them planning. They want me gone, Agnes, to a nursing home or worse." Agnes was quiet for a moment, her breath hitched. "This sounds exactly like what I used to see in my work, Evelyn. Elder abuse. We need to document everything. Every single detail. Can you do that safely?" "I'm already doing it," I said, a new strength in my voice, a steel resolve replacing the fear. "Mentally, every single day. Now, with your help, I can do it properly. I am going to fight back, Agnes. I am going to expose them. They will regret this." The resolve in my voice was absolute. My fight for justice had officially begun. With the burner phone hidden beneath my mattress and the e-reader becoming my secret window to the world, I began to build my case. Agnes was my co-conspirator, a tireless ally. She connected me with a lawyer specializing in elder abuse, a sharp, formidable woman named Harriet, who provided me with clear, actionable advice. "Documentation is key, Evelyn," Harriet had emphasized during our first clandestine call, disguised as a wellness check from Agnes's book club. "Photographs, recordings, dates, specific instances of abuse and financial mismanagement. Everything you can safely gather. And remember, keep playing the part they expect. It's your greatest weapon." Agnes also suggested I activate the voice recording feature on the old e-reader, a feature Mark and Sarah had overlooked, likely dismissing the device as too archaic to be useful for anything but reading. I started recording snippets of their conversations, particularly when they thought I was asleep or out of earshot. Their voices, once muffled, now played back with chilling clarity. The bank's asking about those large withdrawals. I heard Mark fret one evening, his voice tight with anxiety. Just tell them she wanted a new investment opportunity in some offshore fund, Sarah replied with a dismissive laugh, her voice laced with contempt. She wouldn't remember anyway. She's completely gone, Mark, they'll believe it. My blood ran cold, but my resolve hardened further. They were not just stealing my money. They were stealing my identity, my very sanity, piece by agonizing piece. The physical neglect continued, sometimes escalating into direct abuse. One evening, after I'd asked for a glass of water, my throat parched and aching, Sarah, annoyed by my interruption, roughly shoved my empty glass across the table, causing it to shatter against the wall. "Get it yourself, you useless old hag," she hissed, her face contorted with malice, her eyes blazing with a hatred I had never thought possible. I pretended to shake uncontrollably, feigning terror, but my mind was calm, memorizing her words, the date, the time. Another time, Mark accidentally tripped me as I walked down the hall, sending me sprawling to the floor with a painful thud. My hip screamed in protest. "Oh, Mom, you really need to watch your step," he exclaimed, offering a hand that felt more like a vice, pulling me up with unnecessary force. I recorded his muffled laughter as he walked away, leaving me to struggle against the pain, my dignity bruised but my spirit unbroken. Agnes was brilliant. She instructed me on how to secretly photograph documents using the e-reader's camera. Bank statements I glimpsed on Mark's desk, suspicious bills from unknown accounts, even a flyer for a luxury assisted living facility, with my name underlined and exorbitant fees listed. The most damning evidence came when I managed to access Mark's computer while he was out, supposedly at work but more likely at the golf course. I found folders filled with my financial records, meticulously doctored wills that cut out all other beneficiaries save themselves, and even emails discussing expediting my decline to gain full control of my estate without legal challenge. There were files titled Evelyn's Downfall and Asset Liquidation Plan. I took photos of everything, the e-readers flash a tiny, silent beacon of defiance in the darkroom. It was like living a double life. The confused, frail elder by day, the meticulous detective by night. Each piece of evidence was a victory, a testament to my survival and their impending downfall. The humiliation was constant, too. Sarah would sometimes parade me around the house in clothes that didn't fit, or with my hair unkempt, when visitors were expected. "Poor Grandma Evelyn," she'd sigh dramatically to neighbors, her voice dripping with false concern. "She just has so much trouble dressing herself now. And her memory is simply dreadful." Their mockery was a constant backdrop to my days, a painful symphony of disdain, but now I listened to it not with pain, but with a growing sense of detachment, like a scientist observing a disturbing specimen. Every sneer, every demeaning joke, every dismissed complaint was just another piece of data, another nail in their coffin. Every oops, Grandma's confused again. When Sarah would find something I was looking for, or misplace something important, only added to the mental dossier I was building against them. With a substantial collection of evidence, the audio recordings, the clandestine photographs of documents, my meticulously detailed mental ledger of abuse Harriet, the elder abuse lawyer Agnes had recommended, moved quickly. "We have enough for an immediate intervention, Evelyn," she told me during one of our discreet phone calls, disguised as an update from a genealogy project. Harriet had an extensive network, and she put it to good use. She contacted Officer Ramirez, an empathetic and experienced detective specializing in elder financial fraud, and Dr. Lena Hansen, a highly respected geriatric psychiatrist. Both agreed to a discreet, joint operation, understanding the sensitive and often hidden nature of family abuse cases. Our first major step was a surprise medical evaluation. Dr. Hansen, under the guise of a routine checkup requested by concerned family friends. Agnes, of course, with her convincing voice and well-placed contacts, arrived at the house. Mark and Sarah, caught off guard and unable to find a quick excuse, grudgingly allowed her in, believing it was just another step in their plan to prove my incompetence. Dr. Hansen, her face calm and professional, ushered me into my bedroom, claiming she needed a private space to conduct her assessment. Mrs. Miller, she said, her voice clear and kind as she introduced herself. I understand you've been experiencing some memory issues, as reported by your son and daughter-in-law. I looked her directly in the eye, dropping my feigned confusion, my voice firm and steady. My memory is perfectly intact, doctor. It's their honesty that's compromised. I showed her the hidden e-reader with the audio recordings of their conversations, the photographs of the damning financial documents, and even a small, fading bruise on my arm from where Sarah had recently grabbed me during one of her tantrums. Dr. Hanson's expression hardened, a flicker of outrage in her eyes. This is very serious, Mrs. Miller, I believe you. We need to get you out of here safely, immediately. She immediately recommended a short-term observational stay at a specialized medical facility, citing sudden decline and the need for new medication adjustments and comprehensive evaluation. Mark and Sarah, desperate to maintain their facade of concerned caregivers and eager to push forward with their incompetence narrative, grudgingly agreed, completely unaware they were walking directly into my meticulously laid trap. The medical transport, discreetly arranged by Harriet to avoid any unnecessary drama, whisked me away to the Haven, a private, comfortable facility nestled amidst tranquil gardens, but one which doubled as a secure safe house for elder abuse victims. Here, in the quiet serenity of a private room, I met Officer Ramirez. Her demeanor was firm but kind, her eyes holding a deep understanding. Mrs. Miller, she said, holding my hand reassuringly, we've reviewed the preliminary evidence you provided, and it's compelling. We'll be executing a search warrant on your residence shortly to seize more financial records, including any hidden accounts or documents. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and triumph. The game was finally out in the open. They'll be furious, I stated, a grim satisfaction in my voice as I imagined Mark and Sarah's faces contorting with rage and panic. Let them be, Officer Ramirez replied, her voice unwavering. Their fury won't change the truth. It will only confirm their guilt. While at the Haven, I also connected with other residents, fellow survivors of family abuse. There was Arthur, a retired engineer whose daughter had systematically drained his entire retirement account, leaving him destitute. And Brenda, a former librarian whose son had tried to force her into signing away her beloved Victorian home to cover his gambling debts. Sharing our stories was cathartic, a powerful reminder that I was not alone in this fight, that my pain was not unique. These connections fueled my resolve, transforming my personal battle into a broader mission. I realized the importance of not just my own escape, but of helping others like me, who had suffered in silence. My individual pain became a catalyst for collective action, a quiet revolution against the hidden epidemic of elder abuse. This was no longer just about vengeance. It was about justice, about empowering others, about changing a system that often failed to protect its most vulnerable citizens. My voice, long silenced, was finally finding its true purpose, gaining strength with every shared story, every knowing glance. The observational stay at the Haven quickly transformed into my strategic base. Dr. Hanson confirmed my mental acuity through extensive testing, meticulously documenting that my cognitive functions were perfectly normal, in stark contrast to Mark and Sarah's fabricated claims. Officer Ramirez, armed with the search warrant, descended upon my house like a silent storm. Mark and Sarah were reportedly frantic, feigning shock and outrage as police officers systematically sifted through their meticulously hidden financial documents, their faces a mixture of disbelief and growing panic. I imagined Sarah's theatrical tears and Mark's blustering indignation as their carefully constructed world began to crumble. It brought a grim satisfaction that settled deep in my bones. The evidence they uncovered was overwhelming. Forged signatures on checks and property deeds, hidden bank accounts opened in my name, inflated invoices for my care that amounted to thousands of dollars for non-existent services, and even detailed plans for converting my house into a rental property once I was safely institutionalized. The most damning discovery was a series of emails between Mark and a shady financial advisor, discussing how to legally drain my entire inheritance while avoiding detection, outlining loopholes and deceptive practices. Officer Ramirez told me on a video call that the evidence was irrefutable. It seems they had a very comprehensive plan, Mrs. Miller, she stated, her voice tight with professional anger. A long-term scheme to defraud you of everything. The confrontation with Mark and Sarah happened at the police station. Harriet advised me not to be present for their initial questioning, as it could be emotionally taxing, but to deliver my statement directly to Officer Ramirez. Later, Mark and Sarah, now fully aware of the mounting evidence against them, were brought to the Haven for a mediation session, though it was anything but. Sarah tried to play the victim, tears streaming down her face, her voice a theatrical sob. "Grandma Evelyn, how could you? We've done everything for you, we loved you." Mark, ever the manipulator, tried to appeal to my maternal instincts, his voice softening into a practiced plea. "Mom, this is a terrible misunderstanding. We were just trying to help you manage your affairs. You were getting so confused." I looked at them, my voice steady, devoid of the tremor they expected, my posture upright and strong. "You didn't help me, Mark. You stripped me of my dignity, you stole my money, you mocked my pain, and you tried to erase my existence. Sarah, you delighted in my silence, believing I was deaf and blind to your cruelty, hiding my hearing aids so you could freely conspire against me." Sarah flinched, her false tears drying abruptly. Mark's face turned ashen, the color draining from it as if someone had pulled a plug. "I have recordings of your cruel remarks, Sarah," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "of your laughter as you discussed my episodes. And Mark, I have the irrefutable evidence of your financial fraud, your forgeries, your emails with your advisor, even the moment you sabotaged my wheelchair, causing my fall." Mark's eyes widened, then he tried to bluster, his voice cracking. "That's ridiculous, you're clearly delusional. This is all a fabrication of your senile mind." Officer Ramirez stepped forward, holding up a file thick with documents. "Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, the evidence collected from your home, combined with Mrs. Miller's detailed accounts, the audio recordings, and the independent medical evaluation, paints a very clear picture. We have enough to proceed with multiple charges, including elder abuse, financial fraud, and assault." The silence that followed was deafening, a profound silence that Mark and Sarah had tried to impose on me, now reflecting their own fear and despair. They were no longer in control. Their meticulously constructed world of lies and exploitation was crumbling around them, brick by agonizing brick, reduced to rubble. My heart, once a bruised and battered thing, now beat with a steady, resolute rhythm of justice. The legal process, as Harriet explained, was slow but relentless. Mark and Sarah were formally charged, and the news sent shockwaves through our extended family and their social circles. Many expressed disbelief initially, then horror and disgust, as the sordid details of their systematic abuse emerged in the local papers and online. Some relatives, who had been subtly cut off from me by Mark and Sarah through fabricated excuses and intercepted calls, reached out with heartfelt apologies and genuine offers of support. My sister Eleanor flew in immediately from Florida, tears in her eyes as she embraced me. "Oh, Evelyn, why didn't you tell me sooner? I tried to call so many times, but Sarah always said you were resting or too unwell to talk." "I should have known." I simply held her hand, too exhausted for anger, just immensely grateful for her renewed presence, a comforting anchor in the storm. Meanwhile, Lily, my great-granddaughter, visited me at the Haven almost daily. Her eyes were often red-rimmed, but she held her head high, a newfound maturity in her gaze. "Grandma Evelyn," she whispered, tears finally escaping her eyes, "I'm so sorry. I knew something was wrong, I felt it, but I didn't know what to do. They made me doubt myself." I pulled her into a tight hug, holding her close. "You helped me more than you know, my dear. That e-reader, that phone, they were my lifeline. You were my first ally." Lily's bravery, her quiet acts of kindness, were a profound testament to the good that still existed within our fractured family. She chose a different path than her parents, a path of empathy, integrity, and genuine concern. She confessed that she had suspected her parents were doing something wrong, but they had gaslighted her too, making her doubt her own perceptions and even her sanity. "They always said you were senile or forgetful, Grandma," she admitted, her voice trembling. And I wanted to believe them, because the alternative, that my own parents were doing this, was too scary, too horrifying to comprehend. The local news, which had once broadcast my humiliation from the car incident involving my former grandson, now covered the harrowing story of my struggle and my courageous fight for justice. Officer Ramirez and Dr. Hansen provided expert commentary, highlighting the insidious nature of elder abuse and how easily it can be hidden within families. My story, once a personal tragedy shrouded in silence, became a rallying cry for awareness, a beacon of hope for others. Marina, a tenacious investigative journalist whom Harriet connected me with, delved deeper into the story, exposing the systemic issues and legal loopholes that allowed such abuse to flourish unnoticed. She interviewed other victims, legal experts, and even frustrated law enforcement officials who struggled with the complexities of these hidden cases. "Your courage, Mrs. Miller, is going to save countless lives," Marina told me during one of our interviews, her voice filled with admiration. "You're giving a voice to the voiceless, revealing what happens behind closed doors." The restitution process began, though it was complex and painstaking. Mark and Sarah's assets were frozen, and legal battles ensued to recover my stolen funds and property, a significant portion of my life savings. It would take time, perhaps years, but the promise of financial restoration lifted a heavy burden from my shoulders. The idea of them profiting from their cruelty, of enjoying the fruits of my labor while I suffered, was intolerable, and now they would be stripped of their ill-gotten gains. The community rallied around me with an outpouring of support. My old Bridge Club members, led by a tearful Agnes, visited regularly, bringing flowers, home-baked goods, and countless stories of their own experiences with aging parents or relatives, expressing their solidarity. They organized a fundraiser for the Haven, a testament to the power of community support against family betrayal. The silence that had once defined my abuse was now filled with the symphony of solidarity, a chorus of voices determined to protect the vulnerable, to ensure that what happened to me would not happen to others. The trial was long and emotionally draining, each day a new assault on my senses. But I stood firm, my voice clear and unwavering as I testified against Mark and Sarah. Every detail of their cruelty, every act of theft, every moment of my forced silence was laid bare for the court. The audio recordings were played, their mocking voices echoing through the courtroom, undeniable proof of their malice and contempt. The photographs of doctored documents and my bruised arm spoke volumes, silent screams of the abuse I had endured. Mark and Sarah, once so confident and seemingly invulnerable, now appeared broken, their faces pale and drawn, their carefully constructed personas shattered before the public eye. The verdict was swift and decisive, guilty on all counts of elder abuse, financial fraud, and neglect. The sentencing was a moment of profound, if bittersweet, triumph. Mark received a substantial prison sentence, reflecting the severity of his financial crimes and his leading role in orchestrating the abuse. Sarah received a shorter sentence, followed by extensive probation, acknowledging her complicity while considering her slightly lesser direct involvement. Restitution was ordered, ensuring that my financial losses would eventually be recovered, though it would be a lengthy process. As they were led away, their faces etched with despair, I felt no elation, only a quiet, resolute sense of justice served. The karmic twist was complete. Their silence, their cruelty, their attempts to erase me, had ultimately led to their own public downfall and loss of freedom, a poetic justice. Upon my full recovery and the initial return of some of my funds, I chose not to return to my old house. It held too many painful memories, too many ghosts of the past. Instead, with Harriet's help, I purchased a beautiful, modest condominium in a vibrant senior community, a place where independence and support coexisted harmoniously. My life, once stagnant and filled with shadows, bloomed anew. I reactivated my bridge club, rejoined my beloved book group, and even started a gardening club with my new neighbors, filling my days with joy and purpose. My precious hearing aids were back, allowing me to fully engage with the world, to hear every nuance, every laugh, every whisper, a powerful symbol of my regained autonomy and presence. My most profound passion became advocacy. Working closely with Harriet, Officer Ramirez, and Dr. Hansen, I dedicated my time and energy to Evelyn's Voice, a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering elder abuse victims. We ran support groups, provided legal aid referrals, and educated communities on recognizing and preventing elder abuse, reaching thousands with our message. I shared my story tirelessly, in talks at community centers, on local news programs, and eventually in a deeply personal memoir I co-authored with Marina. My book, The Silence They Sought, became a powerful tool for awareness, its raw honesty resonating with countless readers, victims, and their families. Lily, my great-granddaughter, became a constant presence in my new life. She visited regularly, helping with the nonprofit's social media and even bringing her college friends to volunteer, inspired by my resilience. She pursued a degree in social work, dedicating herself to helping vulnerable populations, carrying forward a legacy of compassion. "Grandma," she told me one day, her eyes filled with determination, "I want to dedicate my life to helping people like you, to make sure no one else has to go through what you did." She was the family I chose, the future I helped shape, a testament to resilience and hope, a bright flame in the aftermath of so much darkness. Years passed. Mark and Sarah served their sentences. I eventually received a letter from Mark, thin and apologetic, expressing remorse, claiming he was now in therapy and trying to understand his actions and the patterns that led him to such cruelty. Sarah also reached out, though her words still carried a faint echo of self-pity and an inability to fully accept responsibility. I hadn't yet fully forgiven them. Some wounds heal slowly, if at all, and some betrayals leave permanent scars. But I had found peace. My life, once nearly stolen, was now rich with purpose, surrounded by true friends and a chosen family that extended far beyond blood. The silence they sought to impose on me had, ironically, become the powerful roar of my advocacy, echoing far beyond the walls of their former cruelty, reaching out to light the way for others. My voice, once muted, now resonated with the strength of experience, a beacon for all who had been silenced. I was Evelyn and I was heard. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please make sure to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments.